Hello and welcome to Muse Jam Session Recording 171. My name is Dani Beaumont, and I am a Principal Product Manager on the Adobe Muse team. Today I am joined by Colby Awesome, who is an awesome quality engineer. And also I see Ollie Pordelli out there. He is with Cookie.com, and Ollie and his team work on building out terrific templates and widgets for the community. And today's topic is going to focus on widgets within the application. They are incredibly powerful components for us. And consistent with the jam session I did 2 weeks ago, we're kind of starting the new year off for many of the new users and acclimating to some of the basic attributes, the basic features of the product. So we're going to look predominantly today at the built-in widgets within the Muse application. Towards the end of the session, I'd like to show you around some of the widgets that are out there in the community and how you can extend the base functionality of the app with some of those third-party widgets. But for the most part, this will really focus on those basic aspects. So, taking it from the top, I'm going to come on in and just create a new website. And click here to do so. And I'm here in the site plan. I'll double-click on the home page of the application, and we want to play a little bit here. Let me go ahead and get my grids and guides showing. So I'm going to show my guides, and I think that should be good. The way widgets work, so if you look at the Muse application, there's the base application which allows you to integrate text and images, but all of the interactivity that you would build into the application really comes from a set of widgets that we expose with the application. And widgets are common web behaviors that can be configured and styled. So let's take something as simple as navigation. If I want to be able to create a menu that allows you to click between pages on a site, I can do that manually. I can create some text boxes and I can link every page to the different text element. But it's pretty time consuming. And there are some things that computers do really, really well that humans don't have to do manually anymore. And widgets take that common web behavior and allow you to configure how you want a menu to appear and how you want to style it. As we work today, I'm going to do kind of two things. One is I'm going to show you the base functionality of the widgets that we have. Now, those widgets are said to have been designed as ugly as possible so that it forces you as a designer to actually make them attractive. So with that said, I'm going to come in and style some of these widgets so they are attractive. And I'm going to show you a trick for doing that. So if you are a designer that tends to maybe use the same look across many sites or reuses components across many projects, you may want to employ this technique that I'm going to show you. And that's the idea of coming in and building out a series of styles for text and graphics objects. So to kind of kick that off a little bit, I've gone in and thanks to, actually I'm going to give a quick shout out, and I'm going to switch over for that shout out to the Muse Themes guys. So I mentioned Cookie as one of our vendors. Muse Themes, if I can spell this, Muse Themes is the first vendor that actually started extending the Muse application by way of templates and widgets. And Steve Harris is the owner of Muse Themes. They have a terrific subscription program. They have beautiful content that they continue to support. They actually have grown to be a pretty large team of folks that are extending functionality, designing sites, and supporting you in the community. But in this land of Muse Themes, what I did is, I wanted to do something a little more attractive. And I went in and took one of the Muse Themes templates, this Hearth website. So if we just take a quick look at it, it has widgets that are well designed, well styled. So I have his menu, for example, has a rollover state for each of the menu items. If I look down here, depending on the page I jump on here, if I go to listings, you'll notice this is an example of a widget where, and I'll break these down specifically, I have this idea of having two sets of thumbnails. So there's the left and the right little round button here, or I can navigate to the left-hand side using the arrow keys if that's a little more obvious. And then I've got individual items inside there that have details surrounding them. So depending on the widget, it might or might not have a lightbox applied to it. If you also go to something like the contact form, wow, interesting. I have to tell Steve. It looks like his form might be broken at the moment. Actually, this is his map. That's interesting. So his map is a little stuck, but he does have a form here. And notice that a contact form, it's another form of widget, can come in and can be styled and configured. So to configure this widget, I've got name, email, and message, and then the go button. The styling basically controls how the form looks. If I go ahead and hit go and there's a required field, I can style out things like an error state for that form. There's also a form down here towards the bottom of the page that is using that same form widget. So using the look and feel of this site, let's go in and start to build out some of these elements or dissect the elements that have already been built. I'm going to swing back over into Muse, and here's the trick around styling. If I bring up my paragraph styling panel here, and also my graphic styling panel, what you'll notice is straight out of the box, these panels do not have any attributes defined. I have nothing in my file. It's a file new instance, and paragraph and graphic styles aren't there. In my library folder, I have something called fonts and colors, and I honestly went to the template, the Hearth template, and I grabbed every typographic element and every visual graphic design element and just dragged it into one pile and then saved it out to my library. Let's do this so you can really see the magic happen. If I come into this fonts and colors element, library element, and drag it onto the canvas and release it, what happens, it looks like actually there probably aren't any graphic styles associated here, but what I've brought over is all of these typographic styles. So let's close out graphic styles. He's not using them. We will talk about them a little bit later on. So I can collapse this for now. But in the paragraph style area, each of these typographic settings here, treatments, have a style associated with it. So the way that you'll build this out is if I come in and I say, this is great. And I come in and choose a typeface that I like. So something not in this project, we'll pick something distinctly different, this handwriting font. And I can come in and set certain attributes. I think the shade of orange is just gorgeous. And text-wise, perhaps I want to set a certain point size, 42 points. Maybe I even want to play with tracking a little bit. And I might even want this to be all capitalized. I know this is looking better and better, isn't it? This is why I grab styles. I might think this is terrific and it's something that I want to repeat or use again. What I can do is come into the paragraph styles panel and just click on the new icon here. And a little hard to tell, but paragraph style there is added. When I double click, I can see all the settings that I defined. So all of the attributes, although look what I did, I made a mess. Let's try to undo that again. Undo. Okay, this is great. I'm going to come in and add it as a style and double click and call it This Is Great. So that's my new This Is Great style. And there are the attributes that I defined just a second ago. Another really important thing you can do with paragraph styles is define their H1 or their P tag. So if you are focused on search engine optimization, as you build out type styles, you're going to want to make sure that you set headlines as H1 or H2, body text with a P tag and such. I'll go ahead and give this an H2 setting and click OK. So now I have a style that I could apply to any new text. If I just came on in and said, ain't this grand, I'll select all of that and just go to the This Is Great style and boom, it applies it. So I did that with the styles that were in that template because I want to reuse them going forward. I'll go ahead and drag my library back in the corner and let's keep paragraph styles out for a little bit here. Interestingly enough, I've got all these styles here and they're all well defined. I can come on in and select everything I dragged on the canvas and delete it. And even though the content is gone, all of those paragraph styles are contained in this little starter empty file. If you find that life is simpler, to take this approach, I could always go in and say, save this site as my start file. And every time I open it up, it's blank, there's no content in it, but it has contained within it these particular styles that can be easily reused and be consistent with any other design that I've done. Okay, number one, we brought in those styles. Number two, I want to now apply those to individual widgets. So let's go out to our master page, out to our site plan. And here I am in that site plan. Here's my master page. Here's my individual page. I'm going to just populate some standard site attributes. So you've got home, you've got products, we've got this product, and we've got that product. And we've got a contact form or contact page where we'll put a form. And we've also got about us. Kind of a standard layout for a standard website. Now, I mentioned that widgets take the work out of life for you. If I come on into the master page, and let's say I decide I want to have a navigation that perhaps sits in the lower corner here and is consistently present across the site. What I can do is go to the Widget Library, which is one of the libraries that comes default out of the box with your solution. And I can go on into the menus area here. And notice I've got two choices. There's menus as a folder and then horizontal and vertical. Almost all the time, not every single time, but almost every time, anything in a folder is really a variation on the same widget. So let's say you're experimenting and you're not really sure, are you going to do a horizontal or vertical menu? I don't know. It may depend on what the client wants or how the design looks. You don't have to decide really, because these are configured variations of the same widget. So by default, let's press and drag the horizontal widget out there on the canvas. So as I mentioned, widgets are configurable and stylable. So I can go and apply those paragraph styles, but I also need to configure attributes. And you'll notice when I drag this on the canvas, this flyout panel appeared. If I accidentally click off, when I click again, and I can see up here in the control strip that I'm at the menu level of this object, I can see that clicking on that arrow is going to bring up those options again. The other thing I want to talk about is really the selection state that you're at. Widgets are amazing, but they take a little while to figure out. And one of the real learning moments has to do with how deep inside the widget or how shallow you're going as you click on it. So notice when I have nothing selected on the canvas, I'm at a page level. Any changes I make in this control panel will affect the page attribute directly. If I click once to select the menu, it's now in a selected state. I can move it around on the canvas. If I click a second time, it's going to allow me to affect the menu item. So this particular menu item. Now, objects that are widgets have this idea of sibling sets and parents. So hierarchically, there's a structure, but at this level, I am at a sibling level in essence. If I go to the flyout menu, one of the configurable attributes is edit together here. With that checked, it says that anything I do to this particular item is going to apply to all of the siblings or all of the same objects at this menu item level. Let's go ahead and actually kind of style this guy out a little bit. But what you'll notice is it's reflecting the site plan. Remember how we went in and set up pages, home, products, about us, and contact us. If I go to the flyout, it's showing the top level pages. If I want to, I can select all pages. Remember how under products we did this and that. If I select all pages, notice that I can see a drop-down menu now, and I see the this page and the that page. Now, I mentioned that we try to make it so awful looking that you're just compelled to have to design it. That was a joke that Terry White, one of our evangelists, made, and I think he could be right. We tried to style it in a neutral enough way that you can understand how it functions, but be free to add your own style and design. I'm going to go ahead and go back out to top level pages. And for this design, I want to, in the direction area here, I want to select a vertical menu. I'd rather it be stacked because I want to put it there on the side. Under item size, you can experiment with this. You've got uniform size and uniform spacing. If I go back out to my master here and I change this to be something quite long, our premium products. And then we look at that menu. Notice how our premium products can be pretty long. And let's go back out to a way that this would occur. I'm going to go to the horizontal view again. Sometimes you'll want these to be buttons in your design. And notice how when I stretch the size of our premium product so that it's got a little bit of padding but not too much, the other buttons in essence have much too much space. And that's because I have uniform spacing. It gives you a consistent button appearance. But if I change this out to uniform, see, I get it confused. Uniform size says all of the buttons are the same. Uniform spacing says that the white space, the amount of white space between the edge of the button and the text, will be the same, in essence, adjusting to the length of the title. Notice how these guys, if I bring it down now, you can see how some are larger than others. So that's an option that you can configure here as you're working. You also have the ability to add an icon. You can browse to place an icon in that area. You may put a graphic for each menu item. If you wanted a different graphic for each menu item, you're going to want to come into those options and make sure that you uncheck Edit Together so that as you add a graphic for one, it's not going to apply to all of them. You definitely want to keep everything together as long as you possibly can before you start to design the variances. It'll just make your life easier. You can also just have graphics. You can choose to not show the label. It's still tied to a page, but it doesn't have to have the words. With that, if I come back out to my site plan, as I'm working with a client, if the client changes their mind or I change my mind, let's say I think that Contact Us should really be to the left of the About Us page. When I double click, Contact Us automatically moves. Okay, so it's tied to that site plan in a very specific way. Let's say I'm going to just do a couple more menu variations because it's pretty powerful and people don't always get this far. This is going to be drinking from the fire hose, all things widgets. I will try to stop and breathe occasionally, but I got a lot to cover. So with this menu still selected, let's say I know that I want to, just thinking for a moment, I want to come in and have the Contact Us page go to a very different site that I've already established for all Contact Us pages. What I can do is in the master, I'm doing it again, in the site plan, I can go to the page that I've defined for that navigation, the Contact Us page. If I right click and bring up that right menu, what you'll notice is I have the ability under menu options to exclude the page from the menus. That allows me to have the page there without having a link to it. Sometimes you'll have pages that you just don't want to be in your parent navigation. You may have a button that drives you there or just something down in the footer, very subtle. This is a way that I could do that. Another one is to keep the page, but don't keep the hyperlink. So the idea is that all of the pages that are here are linked together automatically with a hyperlink. So if we go back out and take what we have so far, if I pull down on File, let's just put this guy right up here in the corner and pull down on File to preview the site in the browser. I told you they're not necessarily attractive, but there are default up, over, down, and active states defined for this widget. So I can see I'm on the home page. It says index here. It says home in my tab. I can click. Notice that I have an up state for everything here to the right. That's considered the up state. The active state is that home button there. The over state is when I roll over an object. It could be different than the active state if I chose. And then there's the down state when I actually push down on the menu item. So we have up, over, down, and active states for all of these items that can be styled. When I click on our premium products, look, it takes me to our premium products page, and there I am in the URL. If you remember, I decided that the Contact Us page, I want it in the menu, but I don't want it to actually link to a page within the site. So I click on About Us, it takes me to the About Us page. I click on Contact Us and nothing happens. That's terrific. That's exactly what I want right now. Because what I'd like to do is have that when you click on Contact Us, notice up here in the hyperlinks dropdown, I can come in and say www.adobe.com and hit enter. So that now has been manually linked to any page that I choose. And in doing that, I also in the Hyperlinks drop-down area here can say, not only go there, but be sure to open up a new tab so you don't take them out of your web experience when you're linking outside of the site. I can check that box or not. Another way that menus, I'll just jump into this a little bit too. Remember how I have our premium products and then I have this and that. Sometimes you want to have in the navigation the name our premium products, but you really just want people to access this and that. I don't know if that makes sense yet, but let me try. What I can do is go back to my site plan, and on the Our Premium Products page, under the menu options, I can say, let's see. No, what do I want? Yeah, if I include the page without the hyperlink, and then we go back here to show the child pages, even though they don't look that great. Got my little drop down there. And now we preview in browser. What I get is sometimes you'll want to show in the navigation, hey, we've got all these premium products, but you don't want to bother designing a page in the site that says, here's all the different classifications of products. Go ahead and click on any one of them. So the behavior I have now is there's my home page, my Contact Us page is going off to the Adobe page. When I click on our premium products, I'm just rolling over. There's nowhere to go when I click. It's not going to take me anywhere because I turned it off. But what I can do is use that menu to jump to this, the this page or the that page. Okay, so some pretty robust menu options there. I am going to go back to my sidebar. So let's change that to vertical. And I'm going to go ahead and pretty much, I'd like to have it sit in the lower corner of my design. So I can pin this here in the corner, which basically says that no matter what happens, it's going to stay in the lower corner of the site. Now the look of this menu is pretty much driving me crazy. So let's go on in and select some of the attributes that we defined in that paragraph style and apply it to this particular widget. So in the paragraph styles, let's start with, I'm going to go back out to that library for a moment and get some colors. So there's colors that are used on the site, and I can come in and drag those out. When I come to the color panel, actually the swatches panel, if I come here and right click and say, delete all unused colors, that will go in and only keep the colors that are being used on the site, which is these hearth colors. So that's another backdoor way to bring colors over and have them be a permanent aspect of your starting file if I were to save that out with the colors included now. With those on board here, I'm going to just go on and give myself a really dark, very dark looking browser fill color. Maybe it's got to be a little gentler. It's feeling pretty intense to me. Just give it a little bit of a sheen. Okay, now what I want to do is add some style to this menu item. So with the menu items, with all of the widgets, we want to show you how they function, but we also want to allow you to easily redesign and restyle them. So if I come to this widget and I right click, I have a clear all styling. When I do that, it's going to make it even uglier, but it's going to have no up, over, down, or active states for the menu, for example. I can come in and add those more freely so that it's just an easy way for you to start from scratch. With this selected now, I might come in and say, how does that look with a little H2? Typographically, I'm going to align it to the left. I have that very long title for my one page, but that's okay. I want to pin this guy. But notice I've got now my active state for all of these buttons. If I want to come in and define, for example, an over state, look how I'm in a funny state now. And you may be like, Dani, I don't get it. So why is it that I can't go in and select the over state for my menu? And the reason has to do with my selection. I'm at a menu level. If I click a second time, I can now go in and select the states. If I click a third time, it's going to select the actual label, the text on this object. And I may decide I've gone too deep. If I hit escape on the keyboard, it will bring me back up a level. So keep clicking to tunnel in and hit escape to step back out. And we'll look at this a couple times in different widgets, how that applies. So with the text selected here now, I'm going to go ahead and go to the rollover state, and I'll choose a pretty intense shade of green. Actually, this is an example of how I want to click yet another time to get into my label level. At that rollover state, I'll come in and give it, doing it wrong. Let's try this. Got my text object selected. Come on, Dani. And type T on the keyboard, and I'll select the color. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not having high fashion day here so far. Let's warm that up a little bit. T on the keyboard, go on into the shape, and be nice. Some days are better fashion than others. Okay, so I now have an upstate, which is the object here. I've got an overstate, and I can also come in and decide what my active state will be. We can get even more fashionable and make that a very lovely shade of blue if I do this correctly. We'll go on in and we'll add the shade of blue. Okay. So just to show where we are so far, I can come on in now and pull down on File to preview the site in the browser. I've got navigation hanging out here at the bottom. As I resize my browser window, the nice thing is because it's pinned, it's always going to be there. I might move it closer to the edge here, but there's my active state because I'm on the home page. As I roll over, I've got an overstate. Notice I've got my children pages kind of flying off on the side here. I can either show them or hide them. I want to probably style their location and what they look like if I were to keep them. Contact us and about us. So I've gone in and styled these guys now pretty well. All right, that is pretty much it for menus. As we get going, I want to keep an eye on time, but I want to show you a way that you can do mobile menus using accordions to allow you to hide and show a menu like this. But let's let this guy stay, and let's just keep going through the widget library. So we just did menus pretty thoroughly. Another widget is panels. There's an accordion widget and a tabbed panel. Press and drag this guy on the canvas. This allows you to come in and have, let's just make a little more room for ourselves here. And get this guy onto the table. So this is a tabbed panel. It can behave in a pretty powerful way. Notice I can come on in here and actually rotate it freely, which means you can do really scary things. But more reasonably, I could make it a side navigation. If I hold the shift key, it will constrain it to 90 degrees. But that's just a feature that we have. This has, by default, 3 tabs. Notice that there's a plus here. That allows me to add additional tabs. And as I work, I can come in and delete the tab by clicking on that label and just hitting delete. That whole edit siblings is nice, but there's also another inheritance around styles that's good to understand. I've got the tab panel up, and I'm going to right click and say, go ahead and clear out all of the styling and clear out all of the widget content. We give you sort of dummy text and images so you can understand how a widget might work. Clearing widget content is another great way to just make everything very simple. So as we know, we have 3 products in our portfolio, this, that, and the other. So maybe I'll add these to our tabbed panel here. I'm going to come on in and give this a name. We'll call it this. And I'm going to give it a reasonable style. Let's try H3. Let's go with H4. And I might decide that my tabbed panel needs a fill of white and a gentle stroke. I can come on in and apply a very gentle blue stroke. Just not feeling some of these colors today. We'll do a 2-point beautiful orange color there, maybe. Okay, yeah. So I have the words this now. And in the bottom panel, I'll do something comparable. We'll go ahead and fill with white, and we'll stroke with that same 2-pixel stroke. Try 2 there. And as I work, again, I can make decisions here. I may decide that this should be all caps. I can come in and set it as all caps. And then when I've got it just the way I want it to be, which would be much more attractive than this, of course, when I hit the plus sign, notice how it's kind of repeating the styling and the design that I've set for the first panel for the others. So you really want to get that first sibling item just the way you want it, and then duplicate. Notice there are different options here for the tabbed panel. So I can choose a lot of the nice behaviors. As I work, I might come in and add some images. So let's just see what I got. Go back to my library. I'm going to steal a few from here just to be lazy. So I've got this image and I'll put it in place here. Now I'll show you something interesting about containers. Some containers are meant to grow to fill the object that you place. Tabbed panels pretty much behave in a standard way. So the size is going to just be whatever I drag it to be, and the content will fit inside there. So you'll notice I have the this tab and I have the this to tab. This would be that. And we've got the other. Okay. So I can continue to work and iterate to make this something a little more attractive. You'll notice that the down state or that back state hasn't been set to white, but we get the idea a little bit on that one. I'm going to keep going because I do want to touch on just about all of these as much as I can today. Back into here, we've got panels. Accordion is, a variation of a panel. So rather than having the tabs, I have accordion sections. The beauty here is that each accordion can be a very different size. This is a nice way to do a complex FAQ. So if you want to define the question here and the answer can be there, and then by clicking they can expand to see that answer, it works quite nicely in practice, just to be able to hide and show certain content. If you've got a lot of data, it's a way to get it out of the way using this accordion panel. Let's slip into now some slideshows. So I'm going to come in and grab all this wonderfulness that I put on the master page. Let's just move it to our first page so that we get a little bit more room going. So on page 2 of this silly site, let's look at slideshows. So the way slideshows work, again, these are all variations on one another. Slideshows, there's definitely a decision you want to make very early on, which is think about the content you want to put in a slideshow. If all it is images and captions or text, previous and next button, then you're good. If instead you want to put images and text inside where the images are, maybe buttons, clicked links, maybe videos, you're going to want to use a different type of widget called a composition slideshow widget. And we'll get into that in a moment. But let's go ahead and select our basic slideshow, press and drag it on the canvas. I'm going to speed up a little bit because I've explained a lot of this now. So notice there are all these options. These are all configurable attributes for the widget. I'm a big fan of thumbnails, so I'm going to show those up for a moment. And let's come on over to this widget in its default state. Now we make life a little easier for you when it comes to images here. If I went off and grabbed, I'm just going to be a little lazy and grab some images here. So I'm shift selecting about 8 images. And you'll notice my place gun, as it's called, has a little number 8 there, indicating that there are 8 images. If I want to click on this hero area, I can come in and place those images. Now in the flyout, you'll notice that the new heroes, this is considered a hero, and this is a thumbnail. New heroes, I defined it took the default definition, which was fill the frame proportionately. So what that means, if I changed it to fit content proportionately and added another one, let's say I added one more cube here, notice how it's giving me space on the left and the right, and that's because it's taller than wide in comparison to this space. So when you select fit fill frame proportionately, it's going to trim the top or the bottom so as to take the smaller side. And inversely, fit content proportionately will give you white or black or just bars on the side that you can select a color for, but preserve the original height and width of the image. If I want to now work with these images, let's say I'm not in love with the sequence that's here, I can come into any one image and reorder it in the slideshow by clicking on the thumbnail, and then notice as I drag it around, there's these blue bars. I can drag it to a new location, and that will affect the sequencing of the slideshow. I can come into a thumbnail and say this one really doesn't belong, and by deleting the thumbnail, it will delete in the widget. I have the ability to define captions. These are free placed content, so I may come in and say, you know what, go ahead and give me that caption, but dim it back to about 80% transparency so that it doesn't interfere with the image so much. And then there are configurable attributes like, do I want a previous and next button? They're on by default. Do I want captions? Do I want a counter? Total number of images? I can turn all of these on and off. Now there's a powerful variation to this whole world. Let's say I come on into these thumbnails and I'm going to move them off. They can be somewhat separated. And I can come in and just by pressing and dragging one of them, because edit siblings, edit together in essence has been selected, anything I do to one of my thumbnails is applying to all of my thumbnails. So I can come in and quickly just restructure the way the thumbnails are working. And maybe I want to take this set and drag them side by side. Let's just see. Maybe make my container a little bigger, which will effectively do the same thing. So thumbnails are governed by kind of different spacing rules. With this container selected, so at a thumbnail container level, I can come into the spacing panel and decide my gutter. Notice there, I may decide I want a spacier gutter of about 20 by 20. And I can fidget just a little bit more if I really want these to exactly align by just resizing my thumbnail. So we know how to reorder them. We know that clicking the thumbnail will bring up the fuller image. You can then, if you choose, get rid of the thumbnails. Now that you've used them to reorder the sequence of your slideshow, you can just turn them back off again. There's a really nice feature called Lightbox, and that allows you, if I go ahead and click that, watch the hero image here just to catch what's about to happen. So when I click on Lightbox, it puts this very, very odd gray border on the outside of it. This is our best attempt to indicate to you that when you have a lightbox, you'll often want to tint out the background content of your site to bring focus to a lightbox, which is basically centering in the browser some content, in this case images. With that selected in the fill area, I'm going to come on in and maybe just change the opacity on that shade to something a little gentler so that there's more transparency. If I now come in and preview this page in the browser, what you'll notice is the lightbox went away because it's a lightbox. I can't see it at all. If I come into any one of these thumbnails and click them, the background will dim, and I'm getting my little image here that's coming up. Now it's set to something known as autoplay, so it's just going to transition between those images. Usually when you're designing a lightbox, you don't want it to be autoplay, so I would turn that off. Lots and lots and lots of variations, as I mentioned, that you can play with. Let's go ahead and push this one out of the way, and let's grab Steve Harris's much better designed slideshow. Marissa says you're losing me on the mic. You know what, Marissa? In my experience, that's usually your internet connection. I don't know if everybody else is losing me too, but it's usually on your end. Could be mine. If it's bad, this will be up on YouTube within a few hours, and you can try to jump in and pick up where you left up. Yeah, sorry, I think it is connectivity. Okay, so let me go into one of the better designed components from that template. So what do we got here? All right. Yeah, let me try the gallery. I'm going to bring this guy in. So this is an example of that same type of a widget. with just more effects defined. So he's got a nice description here, not too far off from what I had. The previous and next button, you can add your own graphic if you like, or just make this an actual text element. So that's just actually, a greater than and less than character. There's another way that you can do the slideshows, and that's when I mentioned the idea that you want to have more complexity. So let's say you wanted to include not only images, but either a button that might allow you to link to a different page on your site. In order to do that, what you want to do is come on in here, go to your widget library and select a composition widget. Let's just say Lightbox display, or I'm a big fan of blank because it makes life very simple. So I've got basically what's known as a trigger and its resulting target. I've got a trigger and a target, trigger and a target. These are buckets, which is just fabulous. They allow you to pretty much add anything you'd like in there. So I could come and let's say I decide I want to grab those cubes again. I can come in and just click on a cube and it's going to fill each of those 3 containers. Now the whole edit sibling bit does not apply when I place images. Let's do that one more time. Make these a little bit bigger to make my life a little easier. So here's a great productivity trick. I'm picking an item. See how it's like at a trigger level, and I want to select across my complex widget. For any object that I'm selecting, if I click on it, we have this sweet little select same trigger, and that is going to select all of the comparable items like triggers and allow me to easily work here. I'm going to space these guys out a little bit using some funny control keys that I'll get right in a moment, maybe. You know, some days jam sessions just start a little too early for my brain to be ready. This could be one of those days. Okay. Space these guys out a little bit. Go on in and grab some cubes. 1, 2, 3. Good enough for jazz. I don't want to spend too much time. But this is my trigger. Now, I can come into this trigger and say, you know, I really want it to fill the space a little bit better. So I can move it so that it fits to this space. I can come in and using a control key, the command key, I can crop my image. So some standard InDesign Power keyboard commands, if you're familiar with them. Notice I've got an image here, and I may want to place that same image up in the upper area, if I can find it. It's so very small. So I'll come in and drop this one here, but I want to control exactly how it looks. Because I'm able to do a very different thumbnail, it can be any thumbnail representing this image, I can have greater customization control. So I may decide that, you know what, this is such a small thumbnail. In the thumbnail, I just want to focus on the shoe, but in the resulting image, I want it to be larger. Okay, one example there. I can also come in and say, click me. And I can give that something attractive from a text standpoint. Oh, isn't that beautiful? And then I will change the font color. We can go with lovely gray, or we'll go with black. And I could come out and create a container here that I'm going to fill with white. Fiddle with my spacing a little bit. And let's say I want this button to actually go to one of the pages. So in addition to having that dynamic navigation, my hyperlinks dropdown is going to always represent all of the pages that are in my site. So I can say, go ahead and jump to the premium products and change this to buy me. And what I can do is pretty much just go in and place this onto this slideshow section. So if I jump here, it'll take me to another page. That's kind of interesting. It's really important that you get this right inside your container. I'm not going to fiddle with it right now, but I bet. So notice I've got it actually, it's in a different spot, but it's all right. You guys get the point. When I click on a thumbnail here, I can jump between them. And if I were to preview this in the browser, clicking on that middle thumbnail, I have a Buy Me button that's actually a button. So you can say Buy Me and jump to another page in the site. Okay, moving right along. Let's go to a more, all right, I'm gonna build this. Widgets are amazing, but it's a lot to cover in a little bit of time. So I'm gonna keep going. In fact, I'm gonna stop and see how you're doing. See how Colby's doing. Any issues or questions that I should jump in on? Colby can give me a thumbs up. This is where he's talking to a friend and really not listening, but perhaps. Colby. Ah, good. All right, all's good. And keep going. Watch this for a second. Let's say I have complex products. And for whatever reason, I really love this slideshow. Although Lightbox, let's turn the Lightbox part off because I don't think that would be appropriate. I have this slideshow and I have a totally different slideshow. And what I want to do is kind of toggle or control one or the other. Nesting widgets is incredible to think about the sophistication of the design. And if you don't like doing this, buying it from vendors like Cookie and Muse Themes and Muse Grid and all of the other widget vendors that I'll show you in just a few minutes. Checking the time real quick. Yeah, I'm eating it up. I'm going to come on into the widget library and I'm going to get another composition widget, this blank widget here. And I'm going to be quick about it. I'm not going to bother styling it very much. But I want to come in and grab my trigger and my target, bring it up here towards the side. And I want to put kind of a main body. What I have are two distinct little containers that have different targets. I'm going to go to these two guys just to teach you this for a minute. I want them to be squarish. So I'm going to come on down to about 45 pixels by 45 pixels. I'm going to round their corners out. This is very quick and dirty. And make sure it's nice and round. I've done two little silly dumb buttons there, like we saw in that first example. So I have these little breadcrumbs that will jump between the two states. And then I'm going to take my first very, very different slideshow and I'm going to drop it into this first target. I'm going to go to the second target and grab that very, very different slideshow. So let's say you have two different sets of product types, or you have two distinct buttons that sit on the bottom that say products 1, products 2. When I preview this in the browser, I have a very nice way to categorize my content, depending on whether or not it wants to cooperate. So in that second target, I can come and in a nested way interact with what's there. I can go back to my first one, which is being, right, it's because I put the content on that second place. So notice I've got a really sophisticated hierarchical structure. If I come in and move all of this loveliness out of the way and go into my library, there's a really nice example of this built out in a much richer way. Let's just see. I'm going to get there. Yes. Okay. Notice how Steve set this one up. It's really the same elements I just showed you. You've got a trigger and its resulting target. Then you've got a trigger. You can use the previous and next buttons to toggle between those two. But once I'm in there, I have an individual set of images with their own content and buttons that take you to other locations. So this is an example of how you get that feeling of lots of detail without overwhelming your page. But wait, that is not all. Let's see what else we got. Covered some of these. Go ahead and experiment more. Let's go ahead and talk about forms. So forms are pretty sophisticated. I'm going to take a detailed contact form and bring it out here onto the canvas. Notice there's all sorts of attributes. I can come in and decide who should receive the email when the form is submitted. I can give it a name so that when it comes into my email box, I have some sort of sense which website it might have come from. I can set behaviors like go to another thank you page. Once somebody completes some details, I have spam optimization features like CAPTCHA that allows you to come in and put a CAPTCHA form in that form area. And this is probably our most complex widget in that it's got a lot of states going on. So if I click off here nothing selected. I'm at a page level. Click once to go to the form level. Click a second time, and I'm in the form field, right? Remember that whole edit sibling set idea where with this guy selected, I can come in and say, select same, select the input, and I could apply a better font, for example, to this item. Oh, much better. See? High style design going on today. Once you've gone in and styled this guy out, though, it gets really easy to then vary out your form. So I'm going to go steal from the library a nice contact form that Steve designed for his template. So notice that there's some nice things going on here. I've got a nice white border. I've got good text. Notice in the drop-down when it comes to forms, there are a lot of states. There's normal, submit in progress, submit was successful, or there was an error. I can define my error state. I can control what the text says when there's an error in its upload, control its fonts and such. But once I've gone in and really designed this form, I can reuse it really easily. So if I come into the flyout for the options here, I'm going to say, you know what, in addition to email, I want your name, your cell number, company, work phone number. Let's go ahead and put a CAPTCHA in, which will include an image and the ability to enter that image text. And it goes on from there. We've got some good form options. There's always requests to have more things like drop-downs, which we don't have, or the ability to browse for a file, which we don't have. But the things that we do have are well-tested, work on pretty much any hosting platform out there that has some basic PHP on the back end, which is almost every hosting platform that we've encountered. And just the ability to then easily work with those objects throughout the site. All right, people, I'm going to do one more complicated widget that tends to be really popular, but I think you'll enjoy it and you might use it. So as you're working on your design, we support this idea of alternate layouts, and I guarantee somebody in chat has asked when we're going to come up with the responsive version of Muse and actually ship it. Of course, Colby told you he couldn't tell you, but very soon is the right answer. In the meantime, the way that you build out sites within Muse is at a master page level. I can add a layout for tablet and for phone. And let's assume for a moment I want to take the navigation that I put on that, I think I put it on the home page. I want to use a navigation like this for my mobile site. So I'm going to come ahead and copy that. And I'm going to go out to my phone design, which I haven't even really set up yet, but I'll come in and do a very simple phone page. And on that master, I'd like to do what's known as a hamburger menu. So I'm going to bring in what I want to be my menu here. Now I can have a totally unique menu on my mobile layout, on my phone layout, than what I have on my desktop. So this might just be homes, products, and contact us. And now my navigation reflects that. I don't want this guy to be pinned at all, which he isn't, which is good. What I want to do, though, is have it get out of the way when I'm looking to have page content on my page. So I'll go ahead and fill my browser with a very gentle shade of gray. And what I'd like to do is have my navigation on my master sort of appear and hide here at the top. The way I want to do that, really quickly, how are we doing? We got 5 minutes, folks. Is I want to go into the library and I want to grab that sweet little accordion. I'm going to drag it on the canvas. I'm going to go pretty quick here. I'm going to say remove all content, remove all styling. Give me a very basic little bucket here. I'm going to get rid of the text. What I want to do is add in the background a little graphic. And it's kind of like a shout out to the old days of sprites, if any of you came from the world of coding. I really don't know what a sprite is. I've never gotten a clear definition, but it basically is an element that's reused across a site. So I'm going to go and grab a fill. See if I can find this as quickly as I'd like to. You're probably not going to be able to see very much here, but notice this is just a graphic and it's got what's known as a hamburger, little menu indicator, and then a close box. And it's in the same PNG file with a transparent background. And the way that works is if I come in and open that, I'm going to go ahead and place it in its original size and align it in the upper corner there, right there in the upper left of my fill dropdown for this container. I know I'm going awfully fast, but there's a lot to talk about with Muse. I now have that little hamburger menu. I want to now go into the states of this accordion and go to the normal state and do that a little bit more correctly. So with the normal state, I'm going to grab that graphic again, and I'm going to line it up in the corner. And when I go to the active state, when it's actually open, I'm going to come on in there and just change the position of that graphic to the bottom. See how that toggle works? When it's at the top, it shows the graphic at the top. When it's at the bottom, it shows the graphic at the bottom, which is, in essence, that close box. I'm going to then come on in and I'm going to grab my navigation and bring it into the panel of the accordion towards the bottom. And I'm going to also step on out here and make sure that it's set to fit the full browser width. Lastly, I'm going to come to this accordion and I'm going to say can close all. So be sure to close it when I want. If I do this right. I guarantee Colby is cringing under his table right now. Okay, expand and collapse and hide and show that menu. The other thing that's really kind of fun and interesting is that overlap items below. If I come on in and I add a little bit of content here, let's go to that library and steal some other attractive bits. I've got this content that's just here, and I'll put it right up there to the top of where this accordion is sitting. And I'm going to make sure that I layer well. In fact, I'm going to cut this guy. And I'm going to let this remain my master. So in the expanded mode, I'm like this. When I drop down, I've got just some menu items. Now, if I were doing this well, I would change the background fill so that they're a little easier to see. But I'll come into my active page content, and let's just put this guy right up here towards the top. I'm going to preview this in the browser. It's a little bit odd because we're not really on a phone. But watch the behavior. Whenever I click on that hamburger, it moves the active page content out of the way, allowing me to navigate to another location on the site. Clicking it again closes it back up. That's known as a push menu. And we can get away with that with the accordion widget and having inside of it nested the menu. All right, I'm going to jump out and see where chat is and what I can talk about. A little bit more detail. Well, I post this presentation in Muse tutorials. It will definitely be on the YouTube channel. So if you go to Ping Dani, P-I-N-G, just search for Adobe Muse on YouTube. You'll see there's a channel there, and this recording will be there along with many, many other recordings that we've done over time. That's always the best place whenever we have a new release to see the latest features as well. That is a heck of a lot all in an hour. But I'm happy to take any additional questions that you might have as we go. I'm going to also jump over to the closing panel. In that lower right-hand corner is where you need to tell me, A, if we covered everything you wanted to, B, so yeah, you can rate the session. Did we get to the topics you thought we would? I think there was a lot to cover, but hopefully we covered enough. And then are there topics you'd like to have more jam sessions about? That's the beauty of a jam, is we respond to what you need. It's our space. Hopefully you covered any technical questions while I was blubbering on about widgets. With I see that Mark joined us as well, so you had some good coverage between Mark and Colby. You're welcome, Stacy. Absolutely. All right, if I were you, I would make sure that you come to the next jam session in 2 weeks. I can't tell you yet why you want to come, but you want to come. It's going to be good. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a lot to learn, but I encourage you to come. So hope to see you again in 2 weeks, and keep the questions coming. If you have beautiful designs or just interesting designs, send it to our Site of the Day submission area. We love to see the work you're doing. And thank you for spending an hour with us today.